My people, it's about that time.
Like a boss.
Live from the USA, helping you get paid every day. This is the boss of Bitcoin, the Cristo of crypto. It's your boy BK. And if you don't like me, you must not like money. Thank you for joining me, everybody. Today we are looking at the end of the PetroDollar regime. This has been the fiat currency that I've grown up with. Started in 1972, I believe, with the Bretton Woods Agreement. We'll get into that in this video. And most importantly, tell you how you can profit as a result of the greatest transformation of wealth in the history of humanity. So if this is your first time tuning in, congratulations, baby. You are now rocking with the best. My name is BK, also known as the Crypto Trader, and I'm the boss of these charts, as you will soon find out. Every day I grace this microphone with my voice is another day you get to profit as a result, and today is no exception. So if you haven't done it already, make sure you like this video and subscribe. I make a video every single day to try to help you get paid, and this is how we do it. We give away free Bitcoin every single Friday. I have a global community, people from all over the world watching this channel. I give you a chance to win some free BTC. All you need to do is shout out your city, let me know what city, what part of the world you tuning in from, and bam, it's just that easy to get paid. A new winner every single Friday. So shout your city out and leave your chance to win in the comments. So here we go. Ain't nothing to it but to do it. Let's go ahead and make this money. This is what we're talking about today. This is just a brief overview on what is fiscal policy. Fiscal policy is the use of government spending and/or tax policies to influence economic conditions, especially macroeconomic conditions. What does that mean? That means the money that the government comes by, whether it be lawfully obtained or otherwise, taxes, seized Bitcoin exchanges, whatever it might be, they get a big pot of money. And then they get to decide, okay, well, how can we best spend this money to continue to circulate money throughout the economy? One of the things that the government is responsible for is ensuring the fiscal stimulus of its constituents. Essentially, they need money to make money, right? So they take your money and then go do some other things with it. And at the end of the day, that makes more money, right? I say all that to say, going through Notre Dame, it was one of the classes, I believe it was macroeconomics. And that was with one of the deans of Mendoza, the business school. And he put this formula up on the board, and I forget the letters, the formula. It was only like 3 or 4 letters. It was like CX minus B, plus Y. And that was like the formula the government used for, the economy. But I think when it all came down to it, the most important variable in that formula was government spending. Essentially, how much money is the government spending in this equation? Are they spending a little bit of money? Because if they're only spending a little bit of money, they're really only recirculating a small amount, and the impact on the economy is going to be marginalized. Where if they're spending a lot of money, then, they really moving money around, and, things are looking pretty good. I say all that to remind you of a time when the government agreed to spend an exorbitant amount of money to move the country forward. I think the most well-known incident I could come across was the building of the Hoover Dam. People don't realize the Hoover Dam was actually a stimulus package. You know what I'm saying? This was a stimulus package to get the United States out of the Great Depression, right? Look, right here. Constructed between 1931 and 1936 during the Great Depression, it was dedicated by President Roosevelt. So the Great Depression happened in like 1928, right? When was Black Thursday? Great Depression. I think that's 28, I want to say. 29. Okay, close enough, close enough. So essentially, this project was an initiative for the government to spend a vast amount of money on one initiative to essentially give people jobs, come up with an outcome. We got this big wall of water now. We got a bunch of energy. We done built a whole new city. You know what I'm saying? Boulder Canyon. And it is also, I think, very important to remember that this was, essentially the project that got us out of the Great Depression, as far as the United States is concerned. One of the things I wanted to look up was the cost, how much did it cost to build? And there it goes right there. Keep in mind, this was in 1930. It cost $48 million to build that big wall of water. For all of you that are not familiar, we do have this thing called inflation, so 48 million might not be that much right now. But in 1930 dollars, that was almost $1 trillion. And if you go back to 1928, when it happened, I don't know how that happened. That don't even make sense. Okay. Oh, maybe the economy was stronger in 28. Who knows? So 1930 is almost $1 trillion. So essentially, the government agreed to spend $1 trillion of taxpayers' money to get them out of the Great Depression, and they came up with the Hoover Dam. I say all that to say that I think this was a pretty fair trade. If you look at, what the country was experiencing at a time due to the Great Depression, nobody had jobs. So, you can't count how many men, picked up their, well wishes from the family and headed west to go build the Hoover Dam. This was a monumental undertaking, even from an engineering perspective. It's still, moderately respectful with regards to the engineering feat that they were able to achieve. And more than anything, it moved the country forward to get them out of an economic ailment. Fast forward to today. A lot of government spending is happening, but it's really not centered around initiatives that benefit the common good. This is the Bretton Woods Agreement, and essentially the Bretton Woods Agreement introduced the PetroDollar. The PetroDollar, in simplest terms, is our current fiat currency, greenback, that is backed by the U.S. government's willingness to go and get oil by whatever means necessary. As this article reads, the history of the petrodollar is heavily tied to geopolitics, especially the geopolitics of the United States and its role as the world's reserve currency. Those are important words. They will be coming up within a few more videos. So, to understand the petrodollar system, we need to go as far back as the Bretton Woods Conference held in 1944. Delegates from this conference essentially agreed to debase the dollar slowly but surely. And in 1971, the dollar was no longer backed by anything. The only thing it was backed by was the United States government willingness and ability to go out and extract oil reserves from around the world. They talk about gold, but to be honest, that is the petrodollar. And many a crisis and a wars have happened since, right? When your dollar is based on extracting natural resources from other nations, well, they might just not smile and hand it over to you. You might have to go take it. And if you don't want to go take it, you might have to convince somebody else to go take it, And this is basically the last 50 years of, financial regime that has taken place. This is like blood money but the blood runs black, and it's called oil. And that's what our currency was based on, through the 70s, 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, even as late as Afghanistan. Like, a lot of people speculate that that's one of the reasons, we went over into Iraq was it for, that one guy that was hiding out in some mountains? It was really to go get some of that oil, Crazy. And what I think one of those Vice President Cheney said on one of those stages in front of one of them cameras, he said if he was referring to the United States government and the army, he said, if the only tool you have is a hammer, then every problem has to look like a nail. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the biggest nail in the world. U.S. military spending compared to the rest of the world, we spend more money than the next 10 countries combined. $778 billion of them things. You know what I'm saying? God bless America. And if he can't go bless it, well, then we don't need him, because we got more bombs than anybody. We gonna be our own God. In us we trust. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy. So the United States essentially accounts for a huge amount of monetary spending dedicated towards the destruction, of other nations seeking this strategic asset, right? Not saying it's the best strategy. It certainly has been one of the most, I think, destructive for many nations involved. And I think it's basically held the world, hostage for development. You look at some countries right now where oil is extrapolated from, and Brazil specifically, like, they get oil out of Brazil, but they have one of the worst geopolitical environments, to where it's basically the politicians are siphoning money from the residents, and roads aren't being built, houses aren't being built, they don't have any infrastructure. I went down there and it's still people sleeping in houses that don't have roofs, like they have a tarp roof. Like, it's like it's literally a third world country. You can't drink the water, But the oil's going out, and the people smiling and getting the votes, they getting a piece of it, so everybody's happy, and I think this is one of the most destructive regimes that we will see in our lifetime, and one might speculate that it is indeed coming to an end. This talks about the correlation between conflict and oil. Between 1912 and 2010, countries fought 180 times over territories that contained or believed contained oil or gas resources. Many of these clashes, including World War II, Iraq's invasion of Kuwait, the U.S. invasion of Iraq, and the Iran-Iraq War, have been described as, quote, classic oil wars. Again, America's hands have run black with oil for quite some time. It should also not be mistaken that the Federal Reserve was created in 1913. And I believe one of these first conflicts that they talk about happened in like 1912. There you go right there. So it's like within a year, you know what I'm saying? It's like problem, reaction, solution. We need a new currency. We need a new asset. We need to fund this industrial complex that's going to rule the world for the next 100 years. How do we do it? Well, let's come up with a new system to essentially funnel money wherever we want to and not be accountable for it, with ultimately benefiting the people, right? So it's like one hand washes the other. The Federal Reserve led to the Bretton Woods, led to the oil crisis, led to the PetroDollar, led to the Federal Reserve. And this, by definition, is what we now know to be a kakistocracy. Kakistocracy is a government run by the worst, least qualified, and or most unscrupulous citizens. Congratulations, ladies and gentlemen. All roads lead to Rome, and here we are. You know what I'm saying? 2024. Rome is alive and well. They had a little cousin. I'm not gonna say it's a baby. It's like a second generation cousin called the United States of America. Been running for 400 years, and since 1913, this entity has been acting on behalf of such said endeavors to control the world with a currency backed by conflict. And I say all that to say we now have a more viable solution for the benefit of humanity. The Federal Reserve exists for one purpose, and that is to put the government that it serves into debt perpetually, whereas Bitcoin exists to supply the economy that it facilitates with value. And that's the parity. We see one world is kind of dying out, one world is just being born, and here we are in the middle to view both at this synaptic connection, known as the early 21st century. I think it's a lot of geopolitics still playing out behind this evolution between fiat currency and blockchain technology. It's still a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt being circulated and propagated by mainstream media outlets that are coherently tied to the perpetualization of this regime. A lot of the media oligarchs we listen to today, grew. CNN in particular, like that company grew through these conflicts. They make more money selling commercials during time of conflict than they do any other time. And that's why they say war is good for business. You know what I'm saying? When people are scared for their life, they go listen to whatever the TV tell them to do. And that's very, very good for business, right? Because we can sell commercials for that. You know what I'm saying? Shoot, listen. So I say all that to say we now have a better option, and you have the choice which value set you want to transfer your worth into. I said it on this channel a long time ago. I realized when you change your values, you can change your worth. And that's why from now until the day I die, it's going to be accumulate as much Bitcoin as fast as possible and help as many people along the way achieve the same. And that's why I've developed this methodology. That's why I come on here every single night and record this video. That's why this will be one of the most notable, not even Bitcoin, most notable financial literacy discussions in today's society. This will grow by the tens and hundreds of thousands. I just realized this is a manifestation. It's a super blue moon happening right now. I am speaking into the future. This will be the reality. My voice will be heard from coast to coast. And this method cannot be broken because it's math, and math is true. You see what I'm saying? It's of the source. And so tens of thousands of people will be able to change their life. Hopefully more. I know I helped a few hundred, if not a few thousand already. So I'm saying tens of thousands. I probably should be saying hundreds of thousands, if not millions. Because the way this method works, as long as we ain't the whale, we can always take a bite. And as long as institutions, i.e. Apple, i.e. Google, i.e. Russia, are investing their liquid assets into the market, it's very, very easy to see where their intentions lie. And that's what this method does. It puts one view on top of the other, and then we decide when we want to jump in. We decide when we want to put our money on them. It's almost like watching a horse race, and you see the horses run around the track, and then halfway through that back stretch, you get to pick which horse you want to win. And that's the one you bet on. That's what the boss method does. And that's why I'm excited for for the future, that we're building together. That's why I give away free Bitcoin. And ultimately, that's why I think we have opportunity to not only come together, but to realize, maybe this wasn't the best system just because it was the only door that was open for us our whole life. That doesn't mean it was necessarily the best one. We got a better door right now, So it's up to you if you want to walk through. If you want to learn how to trade like a boss, come on in. The doors are always open. bossofbitcoin.com. Leave your phone number up there. I'm going to text you a link to join our free VIP trading group. I just gave away 2 trades last week. Both of them up about 5-10% within the time that I gave them to the people. Both of them 2 of the top altcoins in the market right now. This is my calling. This is my mission. I literally dedicated the better part of my life to understanding fiscal policy, macroeconomics, mathematics. And this is how I give back to the people. At one point when I was in preschool, I just told my daycare teacher, she said, Brandon, what do you want to do? I said, I just want to help people. Her name was Miss Ann. She's one of the nicest ladies I ever met. And I told her I just wanted to help people. And she just looked at me and smiled. And I think that's when this path opened up to allow me to actually help people. I've already changed my life. I'm already financially well off. And, my family about to be good. My line gonna be good. I want to help you. Back in the day, I told people I used to be a waiter in a Mexican restaurant, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, making $2 an hour plus tips. But during that time, I was reading Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I was reading Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. And I was trying to figure out the next stage of my life because I knew this wasn't it for me. I wish I would have known about Bitcoin back then. You know what I'm saying? I might not be talking these words. Might be on the beach somewhere halfway around the world. But, hey, I guess I found out when I needed to find out. And that was just in time because now it's like we're here. We're here. This is a global asset at this point. Whereas when I started, it was just being thrown around and, trying to figure out what's going to be next. But now it's like, no, we see. We see the death of one regime. We see the birth of another. And now the mission is to help as many people understand and inform themselves on how to profit from this opportunity. So that's what I've developed. It's called the Boss Method. I'm quite confident it will win a Nobel Prize one day because I'm going to give it away for free. It's going to be like penicillin, but the longer you take it, the more you make of it. And that's the mission. That's the vision. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate each and every one of you. Make sure you like this video if you haven't done it already. And copy and paste the URL. Text somebody you care about. I ain't said that in a while, but I ain't been this passionate about these words. And, I said some powerful mantras today. So we got to get this. We got to get this good message out. And, the end is indeed near. As I said, these are indeed the end times. And as a result, they are the beginning as well. With that being said, everybody, it's that time of the day. Signing out. Boss. Boy BK, no matter where you stay, Brazil to Bay, California, all the way back out through Germany. Good night, good morning, and good day. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for your time. Hit that thumbs up button for a player one time. Do that for me if you appreciate mine. Till we meet again, stay cryptic, y'all. Peace.
Like a boss.
Huh.